So good evening and welcome to the Algonquin Regional High School Principal Search Committee Community Forum. I'm Greg Martineau, the Assistant Superintendent, and I also have the privilege of serving as the Search Committee Chairperson. And when we selected the committee, we wanted to make sure we had a balance in terms of representation. So we have Northborough, Southborough School Committee, we have teacher leaders, school leaders. We also have two students, Jennifer Fox and Carrie Davis, who are participating in the process. And I'd like to, publicly applaud their work. They've been outstanding thus far. And you can see the members who are currently participating on the committee. There are a total of 15 of us, so it is quite a large committee. And we do believe in the collective IQ. When we make important decisions, it's important to have a large group with a lot of input and feedback. So I thought it was important to talk about the purpose of the search committee. Ultimately, the search committee is not in charge of making the final decision. It's an advisory committee to the superintendent and really is responsible for specific tasks, specifically around developing the interview questions, screening applications, interviewing candidates, and then finally identifying any of candidates that we want to move to phase 2, which is interviewing with a superintendent and going through the selection process that is run by the superintendent. So our charge really is to identify as many candidates we feel who could be an outstanding principal at Algonquin Regional High School. If the committee goes through the process and does not identify a candidate, we'll start over and we'll reopen the process, re-advertise, look at resumes again, and go through the process again. And we're committed to doing this correctly. I think the committee understands the importance of this work, and there's no more important task that we do as school leaders as hiring great people. And I'd also like to publicly thank Mr. Tom Mead, who's served Algonquin Regional High School exceptionally well. He's been a great advocate of students and leaves behind big shoes to fill. So just talking a little bit about phase 1 of the process. So the committee has already had 2 meetings. On 2/16, the committee met for the first time, and we spent a lot of time at that committee meeting talking about confidentiality, talking about process, but most importantly, we talked about the characteristics, skills, and qualities that we're looking for in the next Algonquin Regional High School principal. We spent a couple hours brainstorming, thinking about the qualities, synthesizing that information, and coming up with attributes, and qualifications, and characteristics. So that was an important part of our meeting on 2/16. We also spent time this past Monday thinking about the types of questions we want to ask our candidates, and we also discussed the screening of applications and what the process would look like to screen applications. Our next meeting is tomorrow, and we'll spend the majority of the meeting finalizing our interview questions, as well as looking at the candidates and determining whether there are candidates we want to bring in to interview with the committee. And the interviews will take place on 3/6 and 3/8. So another task that the committee is responsible for is seeking input from the various stakeholders. So on Monday, the faculty and staff at Algonquin had 3 different focus groups to provide input and feedback around the characteristics, skills, qualities, and qualifications of the next principal. We had over 50 faculty members participate in those forums and provided exceptional feedback and input. And what was nice to see was a lot of the input and feedback mirrored the feedback of the larger committee. The purpose of this evening is to really seek input and feedback from the community. And it's really a listening session. It's hearing from the community, what its expectations are, what qualities the community is looking for, characteristics, skills, and thinking about the next leader of Algonquin Regional High School. And again, this feedback and input will be added to the attributes that have already been collected from the committee and faculty and staff. And we also have 2 students, again, who have been soliciting feedback from the student body. They've done a number of forums. They've solicited feedback by standing in the cafeteria. They've developed suggestion boxes. And I saw an email before I came around some feedback that they received. So I haven't looked at it yet, but that will be added as well. So I think it's important to identify the purpose of the community forum this evening. And again, it's to seek input from Northborough and Southborough community members regarding the qualities, characteristics, skills, and background experiences they would like to see in the next Algonquin Regional High School principal. So again, one of the interesting, when we were meeting on the first session, both high school students raised their hand and asked, what does a high school principal do? Which was an outstanding question. So one of the things we talked a lot about is the complexity of the role of a principal and assistant principal. And it's important to note that it's a lifestyle, not a job. That it really takes dedication, passion, and commitment to do the job well. And one hallmark of Algonquin Regional High School is that the leadership team has worked as a leadership team. Ultimately, the principal is responsible for delegating leadership responsibilities, but they are always collaborating, processing, problem solving, focusing on students on a daily basis. And it's really around instructional leadership, thinking about programs and supporting students in terms of academic achievement, as well as social and emotional success as well. Looking at, kind of the business operations and maintenance of the organization. So the principal has a lot of responsibility around just day-to-day operations in terms of making sure, students arrive on time, making sure classes are in session, all those details that are necessary for the school to work. And then, community and family engagement is also a very important role in terms of what a principal does on a day-to-day basis. And then just professional culture, making sure that the school culture and climate is one where it's positive, students are meeting with success, and students' needs are being met. So it's a very complex job. But we did synthesize the lists, and we did come up with some criteria. So under leadership, we talked about someone who can build teams and work collaboratively with teams, someone who has a flexible approach to his or her leadership style, someone who's open-minded, willing to change viewpoints after the facts and opinions and interests are heard, someone who collaborates, who brings different views together, viewpoints together to reach to an acceptable outcome, someone who leads with equity, an ability to analyze, synthesize, and summarize data to make informed decisions, the ability to delegate, and someone who is decisive, who believes in the process, but ultimately makes a decision after the process is concluded. So experience and qualifications, we thought it was important that this person have experience as a high school principal, and that was pretty unanimous across the 15 committee members, that the high school is a large organization, it's a complex organization, it's a high-performing organization, and we need someone who brings experience to the job. And we did not talk about the size of the school, for example, if a person had principal experience and what would be the size of the school in terms of cutoff. We just talked about experience as the qualification. Someone who's experienced as a high school teacher, we thought that was important. Someone who's pragmatic, someone who's process-oriented, someone who has a sense of Algonquin's culture, someone who creates and maintains school culture where all students feel safe, ability to reach out to the community, experience with budget, special education, and curriculum, and non-political, works with everyone. Someone who's well organized, technology savvy, someone who's proactive, creative, and someone with strong evaluation skills. In terms of personality, someone who listens to concerns, interests, and problems brought forth by faculty, staff, parents, and students. Someone who communicates well, and someone who has a good sense of his or her own strengths and weaknesses. Someone who has an open door policy where voices are heard, and someone who is the biggest cheerleader of Algonquin Regional High School. So someone who can work with the various stakeholders and groups, whether it's school council, APTO, boosters, and someone capable of having difficult conversations and making difficult decisions. And someone who's empathetic and understanding and brings to the work a global perspective and appreciation for diversity. Someone who challenges staff and students to do their best and inspires staff and students in the community to be the best high school possible. And someone who places students' needs at the forefront of decisions. Someone who values faculty, students, and parents. Ensures that the best education possible for all students, including minorities, students with special needs, low socioeconomic status, multilingual. Again, someone who appreciates the diversity and inspires diversity and appreciates all that Algonquin is. So that was the brainstorm list from the 15 committee members. The feedback that we received from the faculty members around the type of leader that the faculty and staff are looking for, there were a lot of parallels in the types of characteristics and qualities. One theme that came up through and through was someone who can really help Algonquin Regional High School grow, that it is a high-performing school, but there's always room for improvement, and someone who can enhance the great things that are happening here already and make improvements. Someone who communicates well, that was a theme that was loud and clear from the faculty. Communicates well in terms of to students, to staff, to faculty, to parents, someone who understands the value of that. And someone who can take complex ideas and problems and facilitate a process and come to decisions around issues that are important to the high school. So process-oriented, but also decisive, and once going through the process can make a decision. And I think one thing that was loud and clear was, people, the faculty and staff at Algonquin Regional High School truly are passionate about their work and deeply care about the quality and the type of leader who is the next high school principal, and they're committed to making that work and making sure we find the right person. Faculty and staff, their perspective added new criteria to our list. The conversations and the feedback and input that you provided this evening also will add to our list of criteria and attributes of the candidate that we're looking for. And it's essential because we talk about the complexity of the job and the importance of the job, and the commitment to students, faculty and staff, commitment to the community and parents. And it's not an easy job, but it's a great job in terms of you can really make a difference in a community. So your feedback is greatly appreciated. So just talk a little bit about next steps. we actually are, the committee is meeting tomorrow, and the committee has been reviewing resumes and looking at cover letters, looking at resumes and experience, looking at recommendations, and tomorrow we will go through a process where we identify candidates that we want to interview. And then again, the interviews will take place on March 6th and March 8th. Interviews are approximately an hour, 45 to 50 minutes, and can be intense and are really focused. And again, it's just one step in the process. So after all of our interviews, the committee of 15 will deliberate and make a determination if there are any candidates that we want to move forward. If not, if the committee decides that, that there's not the right person, not the right fit, we will begin the process again, and we will repost the position, look at the new candidate pool, and start the process over again. And my experience, again, has been that typically you go 2 to 3 cycles, because it's important to find the right person. And Superintendent Johnson will communicate phase 2 of the process once semifinalists are announced. So again, your feedback is essential and greatly appreciated. And if you have other feedback and input that you would like the search committee to consider, you can always call or send an email to me, and I will be the conduit back to the larger search committee and make sure they get the information. So thank you for spending an evening with us, and have a great evening.